And I'm going to introduce Tim Crow, just in case you don't recognize Tim. Tim graduated from Taylor. He taught in Taylor for 40 years, so he's been around here for a long time. So most of you probably do know him. But Tim's going to talk about how we became the Taylor Ducks. And Marcy's got a little display set up in here on the table of some old Taylor Duck photos and some Taylor Duck football teams and things like that, so you can peruse those at your leisure. And so, Tim, we're going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Susan. And I want to extend a big thank you to the Moody Museum for inviting me here tonight. I appreciate this opportunity. I love being a duck, and that might show through in tonight's presentation. But I truly am a duck, and I've been here for some of this history, certainly not all of it, but I have spent so much time in the archives. And I have read so much information in the cotton bowls and online and wherever I can find resources. And you may not always find the exact same thing in every place, so you look for what you believe is most accurate. But I go into the archives in the duck room, and I don't know where the hours go. They just melt away. And I'm just amazed that we have some documents from the 19-teens in there. Yeah. And I so much want us to lock those things away and keep them protected and put them on digital format so that people can use them that way. But it's just amazing. And to go in there and see what life was like back in the 20s, back in the 30s, back in the 40s, to kind of get to know those people through the stories that are told about them in those cotton bowls and in those yearbooks. It's just fascinating. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight and to share some of what I have found in that research with you this evening. I am keeping my fingers and toes crossed that technology works. My remote has been a little bit sluggish, but I'm hoping that it will advance my slides and we can move through the presentation without any problem. So we celebrated last year a century of ducks. In fact, we called it in the school district the Year of the Duck. And we celebrated 100 years, 1924 to 2024. So now we're in our 101st year. We've been the Ducks for over 100 years. And come on, remote. Now, I also want to mention that we have been more than just ducks. I think it's important to note that we have also had a panther for a mascot and a phoenix. If you've been in Taylor for a while, you're probably familiar with O.L. Price and Blackshear, and their mascot was the Panthers. And they have a fascinating history too. And they have, I've seen clippings from newspapers of them taking the state championship in football, bringing back band trophies, first place awards. They have a lot of history to be proud of. And so I always want to include, wherever I can, O.L. Price and make sure that their history is remembered as well. And then Legacy Phoenix, we have two high schools in Taylor ISD, Taylor High School and Legacy Early College High School, where students can earn an associate's degree, college associate's degree, while in high school. In fact, they actually graduate with that college degree a week before they graduate with their high school degree, just the way the graduations work out. So they're a college graduate and then they're a high school graduate. So my life as a duck. I've been a duck a long time. I've been a duck since my family moved to Taylor in 1966. And rent for our house on 10th Street was $75 a month. And before I started to school, we actually moved, come on, let's work. We actually moved to a farmhouse out between Taylor and Hutto. It was actually in the Hutto School District. And so I actually started to school as a hippo. I started the kindergarten in Hutto and went there for first and second grade. And that was when Hutto ISD was all in one building. The whole district. And there was one class of kindergartens for all of Hutto. One class of first grade, one class of second grade, and so on. My, how things have changed over in that area. My second grade teacher there at that school was a brand new teacher. She had just been hired, and when I was in first grade, there was Mrs. Mack, who was the second grade teacher. But when we got to second grade the following year, it had changed to Mrs. Nadine Johnson. And she now has a school named after her. If you're familiar with any of the schools in Hutto, Nadine Johnson Elementary. And I was in her very first class when she came to Hutto. So I have to say I started out as a hippo, but even over there I was wearing that duck shirt. In fact, that picture of me on the swing with the duck shirt was over at that farmhouse in the Hutto School District. So I never gave up being a Taylor duck, even when I was over there in hippo country. And then I came back here for third grade and have been here ever since. Does anybody remember 12th Street School?
Yes.
Oh, yes. I love that building. I think so many people did. Notice the windows.
Yeah. They're open.
They're open.
Yeah.
We had no air conditioning.
Right.
Yeah, the windows are all open. That was the last day of school, and we were cleaning out everything that we needed to take home, and I must have really packed it in during the school year because I had my arms full. We carried those tote trays. We were departmentalized, and so we carried those tote trays with our books and supplies to each class as we changed classes. That was in the third and fourth grade.
That was my first job.
What was?
12th Street, the janitor.
Oh, uh-huh.
The janitor was fired. As kids, we knew that. They told us another story. So they called all us boys into the office and said, y'all will clean this. If y'all want, y'all will clean the school, and we'll divide his salary amongst you. Mine was sweeping the steps out inside, and at the end we all got called into the office, and we were given, I believe it was $4.25 a piece, and we were all happy as clams.
And you probably were happy with that at that time. Yeah. I graduated in 1980, the class of 80, and I began my 40-year career here in Taylor. I actually did two of my 3 student teaching assignments here the year before I started teaching, and did them at TH Johnson. And class sizes were a little bit bigger back then, but it's been a wonderful career here. Now, one thing that I have come to know in Taylor, Texas, we are proud to be the Ducks.
Yes.
We love ducks. We love being the Ducks. And I want you to notice this top left photo because I'm going to zoom in on it. Even our pets love being Taylor Ducks.
That's great.
It's a family tradition. Homecoming is like a family reunion, and that's happening tomorrow. If you come out to the KC Hall, doors open I think about 10:30 or so, maybe 9. But there's lunch and then program through the afternoon. It is like a family reunion. Everybody, the flock coming back home. And I just want to mention this photo in particular. This young man and his great aunt.
Yes.
See, is that right? Yeah, 2 greats. His great aunt. They graduated exactly 80 years apart. And so he was on the football team, and the football team always comes out to the homecoming. And so I don't know if y'all, how many of y'all recognize her, Carolyn Jackson, of the Carolyn Jackson Show. And she was a pioneer in TV and radio and lived here in Taylor during most of her TV time. But she was, I believe, 97 at this time this photo was taken. And she was always at homecoming, always. Never missed it. And as a former cheerleader, she would always, even at 97, get up at the end and lead everybody in a cheer. But I talked to the young men at school and I said, I know you're coming with the football team and your great-great aunt is always there. I want to get a picture of you two together because it's going to be 80 years apart in your graduation. And so while we were at homecoming, and the football team arrived, I went and pulled him, and I said, meet me up there at the Once a Duck sign. And I went and got Tutta. If you knew Carolyn Jackson, her nickname was Tutta. Everybody in Taylor called her Tutta. We got their picture, and I think that may have been her last homecoming with us. She took a fall, and she's no longer with us. But what a Taylor Duck, and what a family event. Being a proud Taylor Duck starts at a young age. And it lasts a lifetime. By the way, y'all know who this Taylor Duck is?
Yes.
I've heard of some.
She was the valedictorian of 1943. She just turned 100. And she is an amazing person. She still drives to her weekly hair appointments and her weekly chiropractor appointments. And I feel safer with her on the road than a lot of these other folks I see driving around town. But she's just precious. This was Coach T.H. Johnson's daughter, Dorothy Elliott, and then of course Tutta. Julia Mellenbrook, class of 1933, she was 100 at the time of this homecoming. And I hit homecoming, I have enjoyed so much because I talked to so many people with so many histories and so many stories to tell. And I have learned more from speaking with the older Ducks before they passed away than reading through a lot of archives because they're telling me the true story. We decorate Christmas trees with ducks. I hope this isn't going to be doing this the whole time. We decorate fences with ducks. We wear Taylor Duck shoes. How many of you have a pair? Yeah, I don't need a pair. We love to collect Taylor memorabilia. I tell you, it just warms my heart when I see people posting things that they have found. They post it on Facebook. Look what I found, old time Taylor. How many remember this business? How many remember that? It just really makes me feel good about so many people embracing the history here. We even had a mama duck. How many of you knew Naomi Posman? Yes, wasn't she something special? And before she passed away, and not too long before she passed away, I got her on camera and interviewed her about her life story, and it is on YouTube. So if you want to know more about Naomi and the opening of Naomi Posman Elementary School, go to the Taylor ISD YouTube channel and you can watch that video there. People around the world have heard of the Taylor Ducks.
That's right.
Many of you remember Coach Larry Savoy. He and Katie were known for, well, he was known for his duck caps and for traveling around the world. And I got him on camera for his 50th anniversary with the Taylor schools. At 50 years, he was still going. And got him on camera, and in our conversation, he tells the story of them being in a foreign country. I don't remember where it was, but it was another part of the world. And they were waiting in line to go in someplace. And he was wearing a cap that said Ducks. And he said the person in front of him in line turned around and saw that and said, "That wouldn't happen to be the Taylor Ducks, would it?" And he said, "It sure is." I love hearing him tell that story, and he tells it on the video, which is also on YouTube. And if you're interested in more of his story, I encourage you to go and look that up. So that brings us to a very important question. After all this talk about ducks and quacking, why a duck? You hear about bears and tigers and lions and all these other creatures, and why a duck? Well, there's a story there. The year was 1924. The coach was C.R. Drake. It's starting to come together, isn't it? Of course, most of y'all probably know the story. The weather conditions. It was a wet and rainy season. The team played out there in the rain and the mud, and people began to say they looked like a flock of ducks out there. And finally, someone put the name Drake and Duck together and called them Drake's Ducks, and we've been the Ducks ever since. For the remainder of Coach Drake's tenure in Taylor, they were known as Drake's Ducks. He left at the end of the 29-30 school year. The 29 football season was his last, but the Duck has remained. That story was preserved for us by Coach T.H. Johnson, who was hired in 1926 as assistant to Coach C.R. Drake. So he came in just 2 years after this happened. And I guess he got the story from Coach Drake himself and wrote it down. And he was quite a historian. He wrote and made books and books and books about the history of Taylor and Taylor schools, and especially Taylor football. And those are in the Duck Room and in the public library if you'd like to go and take a look at those. Coach Drake was the only coach for all the boys' sports when he was hired, and he taught the manual training classes too. So they had him pretty busy. So I have a little trivia question for you. Where did Coach Drake go when he left Taylor in 1930? So I'm going to give you some choices. Texas Power and Light, the University of Oregon, retirement, or Austin High School?
D.
So what do you think?
Austin High.
D.
D, Austin High. You know, I've given this presentation a couple of times, and usually someone says, "I really want it to be B." I really want it to be Oregon. Well, the answer may surprise you. He went to work for Texas Power and Light. He did go back into coaching, not anywhere around here, and he didn't live too much longer after that. I believe he passed away like at the end of the 1930s, so I don't think he lived too much longer after that. Did you know that Walt Disney liked the ducks? And you may have noticed my shirt has the Walt Disney duck on it. I'll be wearing that to homecoming tomorrow. But yeah, Walt Disney liked the ducks. He sent this autographed Donald Duck picture to Coach Johnson and the team in 1941. And there's a whole story about that I'll share with you sometime. I did write about it for the newspaper. It was in my column, Our Town, about a month or so ago.
You can tell us now.
Well, I knew all through the years that we had this famous autograph from Walt Disney, and that it had been given to T.H. Johnson. And that was about all we knew. When T.H. Johnson passed away, his daughter gave it to the Ex-Students Association. And it is in a safe locked away and doesn't see the light of day very often. But I never knew how Walt Disney came to find out about the Taylor Ducks. and why he came to send this autograph. And I was researching another story. And this happens so often. I'll be researching one thing and I'll surprisingly stumble across something else. And so I was researching for something and stumbled across a tiny little, I think it was just one paragraph story in a cotton bowl in the 1950s. And a couple of high school Cotton Bowl reporters had been in T.H. Johnson's office for something. And when for as long as he was superintendent, he kept this Walt Disney autograph in a cheap little frame, standing up on the filing cabinet in his office. Janelle Rolock, many of you know her, was a secretary in the office. And she tells about all the time she worked there in the office, he had his football team pictures lined around the top of his office, and on his filing cabinet, he had the Walt Disney autograph. And so these reporters saw it on that filing cabinet and said, "How did you happen to get this?" And he told them that a reporter from San Antonio named Perry Winkley knew about the Ducks and their incredible success, and that he had contacted Walt Disney, told them about T.H. Johnson's winning seasons, about our mascot being the duck, and suggested it might be nice if you would send them an autographed duck. And he did. And it arrived at T.H. Johnson's desk. And by the time it was given to the Ex-Students Association, there was no envelope. If there had been a cover letter, it was long lost. And so we never knew anything about the story, except in several of his books that he wrote, he had a picture of this, and he said, "I received this from Walt Disney in 1941. And so finally, we knew the rest of the story. And so I was real happy about that. The Ducks were also mentioned in Bob Ripley's Believe It or Not. That was another little story I found in an old cotton bowl. The Ducks were pretty well known for those winning seasons and for how successful they were. Now, it kind of makes you wonder, who was Coach Johnson's mentors? For him to have been so successful, who were his mentors? Well, I stumbled on this story by accident. I was working on a video about Coach T.H. Johnson. I thought, we have a school named after him. We need to know the story about him and why that school is named after him, and preserve that for future generations. Because at the time, I'm sure people thought, no one will ever forget T.H. Johnson.
Yeah.
He was so loved and so popular. Well, now, you mention the name T.H. Johnson, and what do people think of? A street and the building. Some of y'all may know Mike Kapling, and he was superintendent here. And he talks about they had a high school student working the front office answering the phone when he was superintendent. And T.H. Johnson would come back to Taylor to visit. In his 90s, he would drive back from Plum, Texas, and visit friends here. But he would also call. Well, one afternoon, he called, and that young lady answered. And the first thing Mike knew about it, she steps into his office just laughing and said, "Mr. Mike, you won't believe this, but some guy just called and said he was T.H. Johnson." And he said, he asked her, "Well, did you ever think about how that school, got its name?" And so I wanted to preserve T.H. Johnson's story. And so I contacted his family. And they still had the family farm out at Plum where he moved to when he retired. And they invited me to come out to his house. And so I went out to his house and I recorded his daughter. I recorded one of his football players. I recorded his grandson to put in the video about T.H. Johnson. And then they said, "Would you like to see the house?" Well, of course. Coach T.H. Johnson's house, where he and his wife retired to. And so they were taking me around, and it was left a lot like he left it. And among so many things, on the wall was a certificate to T.H. Johnson, and it was signed by Newt Rockney.
Wow.
It was signed by Newt Rockney.
Come on.
And I took a picture of it, and I said to the family, Newt Rockney? And they said, yeah, he went to those trainings, and they didn't think much of it, and they were moving on to the next thing. But that stuck in my brain. And so I came back, and when I was going through the Cotton Bowls, I found a story about a different year than that certificate. And it said that the coaching school that year was held by Coach Newt Rockney and Coach Pop Warner.
Goodness. Get better.
And so I called his daughter Dorothy. She was still living at the time. I said, Dorothy, there is a story here that I've got to find out. And she said, oh, I was too little at the time. I don't remember anything. I said, well, I want to talk to you and find out what you do remember. I don't remember anything. Well, not too long after that, she and her boyfriend, we're going to talk about him in just a minute because he plays a part in this history. His name was Phil. She and Phil, and that's quite a love story, but that's another story for another time. She and Phil stopped by my office. And so I invited them on in, and I got my phone and I put it on record, and I just kind of slid it across my desk. And I said, Dorothy, tell me what you know about your dad training with Newt Rockney and Pop Warner. And she says, I was too little. I said, well, from a 5-year-old's perspective, what do you remember? So she started talking about how they went every year, that when school was out for the summer, he would go to this coaching school and they would go with him and stay in a hotel of some kind. And then they would leave on their family vacation every year after that was over. But it was every summer. I said, he trained with Newt Rockney every summer. And she said it was Newt Rockney's school of coaching. And so he was there every summer. And it was also Coach Walter Meanwell. And then it was Coach Pop Warner. And by the time she finished telling her 5-year-old memories, I had a story. And so I was able to write this up for the newspaper about how coaches Rockney and Warner influenced early Duck football. That was quite a find, and it was just by accident. There's the certificate, and there's Newt Rockney's signature. And it's probably still hanging on the wall in that house. The family still owns the place.
Tell them we need it.
In the duck room. Well, after I toured the house, they did donate quite a few of his things that we do have in the duck room now. They loaned me his personal scrapbook of his career. And I didn't get to keep it, but I made copies of every page. And so I've got that. But Dorothy's scrapbook, they did give to the museum. And so her high school memories are in there. But anyway, that video that I was researching for I called it "Win is Our Slogan" because I found that quote from T.H. Johnson where he said, "Win is our slogan." And win they did. And so it's on YouTube if you would like to look it up. One of the things I'm most proud of the last 11 years of my career in communications is preserving stories on video while the people were still here to tell them. Because there are so many who are no longer here. You know, Coach Safarik, Naomi Posman, T.H. Johnson's daughter, and Tutta Jackson, and just so many of them. So here's an important question as we're moving a little more toward modern times. Do you know this duck's name?
Waddles.
Waddles. The costumed duck is Waddles. Do you know this duck's name? Drallum. That's right. Drallum. There was a contest held, I don't remember what decade it was, to come up with a name for this
60s.
this tradition. Was it 50s?
60.
60s. And the winning entry for naming this duck was Drallum, which most of you know is what? Mallard spelled backwards. That's right.
We still call him Brown.
Yes, I talk about Drallum. I sure do. In the beginning, let's go way back now. We've talked about all this duck pride, and so let's go back before that. In the beginning, before ducks. Taylor ISD began in 1884.
Were you around then?
I was so old. In the beginning, before ducks. Okay, Taylor ISD began in 1884. And so now that, add a year to that, this was on here last year, but 140 years ago. And so that means we went for 40 years without being ducks. It's hard to imagine that now. We went for 40 years without being ducks. So it brings up the question, what was life like in BD times before ducks?
I love it.
So the first school, there were no quacks, no little ducks. A 3-room building for a room for the different grade levels, a teacher for each one. The first graduating class, 1887, I believe it is. It's off the screen. The first 2 graduates were Lillian Noyes Schoaf and Ferguson Doak. 2 graduates in the very first class. Not ducks, but Taylor High School graduates. There's a whole story there about the academic focus of the district when it started. And I have a presentation on the early days, but that's for another time.
So is that one of the houses that was the school?
That is the school that became a house.
Oh.
Yeah,
And where's it at?
Porter Street. Yeah, I've got that coming up.
Okay.
All these presentations are recorded and historically digitized, right?
Well, it's being recorded tonight. And I do write a column now for the Taylor Press called Our Town. And so about every other week I have a story in there, and I'm using that avenue to preserve some of these stories.
Not the same as when you present.
I'd much rather tell it.
So Ferguson
We love
Doak
to hear it.
was the son of the first Dr. Doak that came here?
Yes, that's right. There was old Doc Doak and young Doc Doak at one point. And yeah, he developed that area and named the streets after his children.
Yeah.
So you probably recognize Ferguson
Yeah.
as a street name, Doak as a street name, and those were family names. Doak was the last name, but the kids were Ferguson, Annie, Wyatt, Edmund, Sloan,
Lizzie,
Lizzie, Annie,
Edmund.
Edmund, and Sloan Doak. Not a lot of people know this. He was Taylor's first Olympic medalist.
Oh, wow.
He brought home a bronze medal in the equestrian events in the 1920s.
1924.
1924.
In Paris.
All right, the same year that...
Year of the duck.
Yeah, the year of the duck, that's right.
He was in the army too when he did it.
Yes, he was. He sure was. Yeah, do you all have a display on it here? So when you come back and visit the Moody, have that on your list of things to see.
Wonder if Kim knows that.
What's that?
The old Dr. Doak was pretty much the minute he graduated medical school, he was enlisted in the Confederate Army. He was a Confederate surgeon, and he surrendered at Appomattox. So he's probably politically incorrect to talk about that, but I'd never known there was an elder Dr. Doak until I stumbled into
Yeah, I've read several places where they talk about old Doc Doak and young Doc Doak. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, the first building, and there was a lot of success here. They weren't ducks. They didn't have, they weren't Taylor ducks. I'm not even sure they had school colors then, but they had a lot of success. They were very focused on academics, and there was a lot of focus on those first two graduates being accepted at the university, and they were. And so they counted that as a big
I
success.
think they were working on becoming ducks. It started out as dokes.
Oh, maybe so, and they got it right. Maybe so. Do any of you remember Fales Grocery Store?
Oh, yeah.
Fales Grocery Store down on 4th Street. It's where the carpet
Latin
floor.
carpet.
Yeah. Their grandson, not too long ago, sent me a picture of this token that he found in his grandparents' things. This is from the mule-drawn streetcar system that Taylor had. And, you know, I talked about the academic focus of the first school. They also had a focus on career readiness and also military, but again, that's another presentation. The students at this school worked for the mule-drawn trolley car system. And so those were the early days of the career awareness. Now, as you might guess, that little building was outgrown. And they had added another room in that area. This is a picture, as I understand it, taken from the top of a water tower at 7th and Main looking south. And this is the Oddfellows Hall. And they actually had classes here that were a spillover from that building that couldn't hold them anymore. And so it was out with the old and in with the new, and this older first building was moved over to Porter Street. It describes in one of the yearbooks about how it was moved over there and turned into, that report says 2 houses. But anyway, that was moved. And the next school was built. And this one you've probably seen more pictures of. It's called the 1890 school, but from what I've read, it looks like the first actual class was 91, 92. The last class to graduate from that first one, I read a report from a class member that said, of 1891, said they were the last class to graduate from that previous building. I would have loved to have gone in this building. Oh, I would
Where
love
was
to have
this
seen it.
located?
I think it's what?
Where was this located?
This one was located over where the annex is, where Plowman's is, and the public library. It was there on 8th Street. And when the Ole's started construction to turn that old annex building into a restaurant and apartment buildings, they had to do some digging to redo the plumbing. And when they started digging up all these brick that had to have come from this old school. And Cliff knows my interest in, our history. He said, if you want any of these brick, come over now because we're going to haul them off. So I went over with my truck and I threw some bricks in there from this schoolhouse. But there were still no ducks that whole time that building was in use. And it started out with all the grade levels until 12th Street was built. But there were no ducks. But at that building, during those years, sports began developing. You began to hear more about sports. Look at the 1920 football team and look at that stadium. And school spirit began growing, and they had the wearers of the T. There were references to the green and white and to the white and green. The yearbooks were green. And there's the first mention of a mascot. Now, it's not what we call a mascot, but the different teams would have a younger boy that would tag along, and he was called the mascot. So it's not a duck. It's not the kind of mascot like we talk about for the school, but he sort of tagged along with that team. And here's another example of a younger boy that was the mascot. Now, this is Phil Pierce. And he was our mascot in 1936. So that was just 12 years after we became the Ducks. And so this whole idea of being the Ducks was still new. And you know, it takes a while to change and develop with changes. And so at this time, the mascot was still a younger boy that accompanied the team, but we were hearing more and more about ducks because we'd been the Ducks for 12 years. And so Phil was our first costumed mascot. Our first costume. Now he didn't dress like a duck. They were the Ducks, but his older brother was out playing with the team and Coach Johnson. He would show up at every rehearsal, every game to watch. He could not wait to get to high school to play on the team. And so at one of the practices, during a break, he ran up to Coach Johnson. And he said, "Coach Johnson, I want to be the mascot." And Coach Johnson looked down at him and said, "Okay, you're the mascot. Now go over there and sit down and don't say anything." Because he had his mind on practice. Now, this is when I recorded Phil telling his story about T.H. Johnson. This was out at T.H. Johnson's house. And so I had the cameras hooked up, I had my headphones on, I had him hooked up to the mic, and I just started out by saying, "Phil, tell me everything about Coach T.H. Johnson." And I'm looking at the viewfinder, I'm listening to the sound, I'm making sure nothing is going wrong. And he starts out by saying, "I started with Coach Johnson as the mascot in 1936. And he tells the story, and then he goes on to other things. That went right over my head. I was so intense on making sure I was getting a good recording. And I get back to my office, and a couple of days later, I'm looking through the footage, and I listen to him say, "I started with Coach Johnson as the mascot in 1936. And I stopped. And I sat back. My mother was born in 36. She's 89 years old. This was a couple of years ago, of course. And I'm thinking, 1936? We have Taylor's mascot from 1936 still with us? So I called Phil. And I said, "Phil, we got to talk about this a little more." And so I talked to him. He told me the story on video, so I have it on video. But he was our first costumed mascot. And Coach Johnson bought him, special ordered it to fit him, this mascot costume. And the sweater has a T on it and a little M for mascot.
Cool.
And so, I'm always wanting to connect the past with the present. And I want our younger folks to appreciate their heritage. So I called Phil and I said, "Phil, can I get you to come to Taylor High School? I want the current mascots to meet you and to hear your story." And he was still driving at that point. And he lived in Austin. He drove out here to Taylor High School, met him in the gym, and the high school Waddles and the middle school Waddles and their parents were there. And so was the cheerleader sponsor. And so he told all about being the mascot back in 1936. Coach Johnson let him pick the number that he wanted, and he picked 77 for his childhood football hero, Red Grange, with the Chicago Bears. And so there was a wonderful photo opportunity, and I was able to write a story about them. But that was another story that I came across about the ducks that was just purely by accident. Here we go. So let's go back to BD times. We're not quite out of BT times yet. So there was still no duck at that point, but there was a symbol that began appearing. Not a mascot, but a symbol. And so you probably know that Taylor was known for its cotton growing. And this sign was in downtown Taylor, "Welcome to Taylor, world's greatest inland cotton market." It was a huge deal here. It was huge. And you still see cotton fields today. But it was huge. Yeah.
So where is it?
It's what?
Where is that sign?
I have heard many people ask them.
Go on, Tim, fess up, we know.
It's not in my garage, but I sure wish it was.
We put out a reward for it.
Yeah, let's get that out there, let's find
Maybe I'll suddenly find it and turn it in
Got no
then.
answers.
So the Cotton Bowl. And, I find not a lot of people know what a cotton boll is. But when the plant grows and it makes a cotton boll that opens up to the white fluffy cotton, and so that starts appearing in publications. You see a cotton boll in the different publications. The yearbook was called the Cotton Bowl. The colors were green.
Are we missing any in that era? Because there's some that in that period that have come up on estate sales and the people will not donate them or part with them. Some were,
Well, Pat organizes and keeps track of everything in the duck room, and when she can, she gets them when she sees them. In fact, she just found some for sale over the weekend, I believe it was, and she snatched them up.
My cotton bowl story was when I was with Miss Kay, and she made us sell ads, and I called up the guy who was forever going out of business, Charles Carlo. He spent 60 years in Taylor going out of business.
I remember that.
And I said, I'm selling ads for the Cotton Bowl. And he says, the Cotton Bowl, hell, it burned down years ago. And I didn't know until then the Cotton Bowl was a beer joint, in addition to being our school newspaper. But,
So that became a very prominent symbol.
yeah, he thought I was nuts.
So how on our bass drum there's a duck. Well, back then, before ducks, look what was on the bass drum. The cotton bowl. It was a very important symbol. Now, I don't know if there's any connection here, and I probably shouldn't even mention this.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. It's a small group here.
It's just
We're all known friends. When you look at the names of those students, well,
Oh, I know.
I know you've seen this picture. Now, come on, let's work here.
We need to get you another remote.
Well, this one has been working fine. The little guy on the end, his last name is Trump.
I saw that.
Did he play the trumpet?
I saw that.
You know.
I don't know anybody who Trump at all.
Okay. So, at this school building, there were no ducks. During the entire time there were no ducks. But there were successes. Well, is it just getting
Raise it up,
tight?
Tim. Try that.
I think it did better when I was standing.
Yeah, I think it's a line of sight or something.
All right.
I don't know. This was presented by a wife.
All right, they had military cadets. in 1917. There they are lined up in front of that school. There's another picture of them. A machine room. Looks like the basement, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The manual training room.
Like woodworking.
Domestic science.
Nice.
They had a thrift bank, learning how to manage finances. They actually had over $12,000 that they managed in that bank. And it was organized by the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. What an opportunity. Chemistry actually started at that first school, but they had better facilities for it here. So there were a lot of former students that were very successful. One of which was our very own Dan Moody, future governor of Texas. Texas' youngest governor was a graduate of that school. And this is one of his teachers. And they interviewed her years later. And she talked about having little Dan Moody in her class. And you know, I talk to the new teachers every year at their orientation. And so I talk about so many people from Taylor who have been so incredibly successful. And I tell them that you never know who's in your class. There could be a future governor. It's happened before. There could be a future award-winning actor. It's happened before. A future pioneer in some field.
Medical field.
Medical field.
We have that right now.
It's happened before. And I say, and just imagine when you're contacted by the media to talk about when they were in your class. And just think about the impact that you had. So Dan Moody was in the class of 1909. Elmore Torn. I have not looked at a clock.
It's
It doesn't matter.
8 o'clock.
It's 5 after 7.
It's 5 after 7. So Elmore Torn. Elmore Torn was the father of actor Rip Torn. He graduated from that 3-story brick building in 1923. And he went on to become famous for his work with Black Eyed Peas. Some of you know that story. And I think it's really interesting that in his yearbook, they predicted, his class predicted that he would be in movies. They missed it by a generation. Because his son and his niece became famous in the movies. Tex Avery, the cartoonist that created Bugs Bunny and all those Looney Tunes, likely went to that school. I have not found his name on a reference, but they were living here when he was school age.
But he graduated in Dallas.
He graduated in Dallas. I don't know exactly when they moved,
I don't either.
but they were here when he was school age, and his older brother likely attended school there as well. His father was on the school board.
He was 12 when he left.
He was 12.
So he left about, I think, 1920 maybe.
Okay. I'm glad to know that, because I hadn't pinpointed that exactly. His father, George W. Avery, was on the school board. And they lived just down from the school. They have an address on the 100 block of West 8th Street, which would put them as neighbors with the Moody's, just a block over. And their family owned a business here. They owned a lumber yard. And I thought I had an ad on here for that lumber yard. There it is. Avery Lumber Company, the home builders. So it's made me wonder how many homes in Taylor that were built back in that time period might have been built with materials from Bugs Bunny's family. That would be something to know. And who remembers Green Acres? Hank Patterson, who played Mr. Ziffel, attended school in Taylor through the 8th grade. I was researching another story, and I stumbled across something about him in downtown Taylor. I was researching Candy Jim's store downtown and the movie theater. Well, in the early days when they played silent movies, they had a piano player. And the piano player would watch the movie, and during a tense moment, they would play tense music, and during a happy moment, they'd play lighter music. And it said that Hank Patterson played the piano at that silent theater. And I just stumbled across that by accident. It also said that Candy Jim had a low counter for the kids to be able to pick out penny candy, and that one of the youngsters that would shop there was Dan Moody. So you can find all kinds of things. So now we're up to high school number 3. And this opened in the 23-24 school year. And that was the first graduating class. Many of you recognize it. Some of us attended there. And so not only was it a new school, but there was a new coach. The year that school opened, they hired Coach C.R. Drake to be the coach. So notice 23-24 school year, we're getting awfully close to something historic happening. So 23-24, they hired Coach C.R. Drake, the only boys coach, and he taught all the manual training classes. But they were hopeful. There was a problem here with Georgetown. Georgetown was called the biggest rival, the most bitter rival. Even when I was in high school, they were a big rival. And so every year, the Georgetown game took place on Armistice Day, November 11th. And it was something that, you know, they were hopeful that this year we could beat them, but it didn't happen. And one of the yearbooks talks about the jinx that Georgetown held over Taylor. And so November 11th was coming up. There we go. And at Coach Drake's first year, they held Georgetown to a 0-0 tie. That was like a huge win. They didn't lose. They tied. They didn't score, but they didn't lose. And that was like a huge win. 0-0. We did not lose to Georgetown. School pride soared. And so they couldn't wait for the next year. We're going to do it this time. This is going to be our lucky year. We're finally going to beat Georgetown. Hopefully. So the 1924 season came. And it was a rainy season. And so they were playing out there in the mud and the rain, and people were flocking out there to watch them because they had tied Georgetown. They were hoping for a win this year. And right before the game, this is snapshots of the squad. They're going after Georgetown.
That was our season.
And
It was our season. We could beat Georgetown. We had a great
that's
season.
right. That's exactly
No matter
right.
what else.
I apologize for the delay here.
It's all right.
All right, so Taylor became the Ducks on November 5th. The Georgetown game was on November 11th. So that year, all that school spirit, all that school pride, were leading up to the big game against Georgetown. And right before that game on November 5th, somebody referred to them as Drake's Ducks for the first time. And you began seeing Drake's Ducks in the Cotton Bowl and in the Taylor Press. Big game against Georgetown. What do you think happened? That would be a letdown, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm telling you.
3-0, yeah.
Whoa.
So they won. So the Georgetown game came on Armistice Day, and the Ducks won 3-0. and they celebrated Thanksgiving with a feast of eagle meat, so they say.
School was out for the next 2 months.
So what did it matter? They were so happy. Wait till you hear about the celebrating that took place. So this is reported in the Cotton Bowl. They were so happy. Let's see.
Came home and celebrating.
Well, they left the field and they went down to the square in Georgetown.
Oh my
And they
goodness.
went circling around the square. And it says we were honking our horns and looking at those sick-looking folks over there. And then we came home celebrating all the way. And then we had a bonfire, the biggest ever. And then we gave some yells and sang some songs and danced and pranced around the bonfire.
See how we are, Dr. Edward Garcia? See how we are?
Hey, I'm getting a lot of ideas. I just asked Marcy, where is that bonfire? Where are we gonna have it?
We had them when I was in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm taking
I
notes.
remember.
Do it.
Just go ahead where you were.
Let's revive that
Okay,
tradition.
because we had the wreck in the year I was there, and I thought it.
Out on the loop.
Yeah, I thought it discontinued after that.
Well, I remember them. It may not have been through my senior year. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, it didn't.
So they're still celebrating, and everybody was so happy that we decided to have a parade on Main Street. That was some night, wasn't it?
Really?
And the next morning, they had an assembly. The next morning, everybody went to the auditorium, and it describes the crowd as being wildly overjoyed. And they called each player up on the stage where 15 rahs were given for each man.
Yeah.
Just imagine what that school spirit was like. Come on. So that was 1924, the year we became the Ducks, and we have been the Ducks ever since.
Now we're 18
Yeah.
in the year of the duck.
And that's right.
Honorable duck.
In the year of the duck. And we've been the Ducks ever since. So I encourage you to get your quack on.
You're here.
Share some of these stories with people tomorrow at work or in your neighborhood or wherever you might go.
Now, Tim, you said that we had stories, and that's a story for another time.
Right.
So monthly, you'll be here. Let's schedule this.
I'll be there anytime I can
Let's
be.
schedule this.
So there's several ways you can get your quack on. There's a ton of duck shirts you can buy. There was even one to commemorate a century of ducks and some memorable historical places around Taylor.
Where do you get those? Because that's the complaint my wife has. You can look at what everybody talks about. They don't tell you where to get them.
This one, Taylor Sporting Goods, I believe that one is for sale at Old Taylor High in one of the shops there.
Okay.
Buy a duck. You can get these giant ducks, like Hutto has hippos all over the
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
You can put a duck in your yard. Now, if you follow me on Facebook, you probably saw I put a picture of my duck on Facebook, and that duck was given to me when I retired.
I remember that.
And so guess what I named my duck? If you saw my post, you know. I named my duck Clarence. Do you know why I named my duck Clarence?
That's a Christmas story.
No. Good guess, though. After,
All the plot there. But
I named it after Coach C.
C. R. Drake.
R.
Oh
Drake.
my goodness, I love it.
Clarence.
never did.
So now you know what the C stands for in C.R. Drake.
Love it.
So are you not a duck?
Is
Did
it
you not?
Clarence Rockney Drake? Clarence Rockney Drake.
Oh, so that would be good. So if you're not a duck, don't feel bad. You can become an honorary duck.
Right.
The Ex-Students Association has this program where if somebody in your family just wants to be a duck so bad, they can pay $50 to the Ex-Students Association, and it goes into the scholarship fund.
Or more if they'd like to.
Or more. And tomorrow at homecoming, we have 2 honorary ducks being surprised at homecoming.
Well, we know one.
So if you want to gift somebody who's green and white in their heart, this might be a nice gift for them. The Duck Room Museum, I encourage you to visit the Duck Room Museum.
Where is that?
It's at the old North Side campus, at the corner of North Drive and Dellinger. And it faces Dellinger. It's that corner room, and there are mallard ducks painted on the door.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But there are such archives there. You would all love.
Are all the rooms now dedicated to the duck room?
All the way down. The last room is where I did my filming for those videos.
Oh, you did.
And
It's a studio now?
it's still set up like my studio.
Great.
Y'all know Suzanne Huser? She's an amazing artist. I went to Suzanne before I started that series, and I said, I want you to paint a mural to be the backdrop behind my interviews with these folks. And I said, I gave her a list of iconic, historic Taylor places. And so she put them all on there. And so when you watch these interviews, behind us, you see the Moody Museum, you see Old Taylor High, you see the bank building on 2nd Street in Maine. You see a barbecue place that represents all of our barbecue, but it looks the most like Vincent Mars. and you just see a whole bunch of Taylor things. I mentioned that I'm writing for the news. Let's see, where are we going?
Right there.
Samsung contacted me a couple of years ago and asked if I would do a video series with them, not filming it, but be in it. And they wanted to call it Tim's Top 3. And they wanted me to pick 3 of my favorite spots around town, and they would come and video me telling about them. And they would publicize those and promote Taylor. So, of course, the very first spot I chose was the Duck Room Museum. So if you're interested in knowing more, you can look that up on YouTube. I'm writing this article or a column for the Taylor Press, and I'm telling old-time Taylor stories. And, I have people contacting me about current news, and I say, that's not what I'm doing. Other reporters are doing the current stuff. I'm doing historical stuff. And I started on June 1st. These are just a few of mine, but a lot of y'all know Ivan Leshber. He was the first principal at T.H. Johnson Elementary. I tell about when he was in school, he got sent to the office in trouble and had to face Mr. T.H. Johnson. And then years later, he came back as the first principal of T.H. Johnson Elementary. Anybody know who Claudia Taylor was?
Lady Bird.
Lady Bird. Claudia Taylor married Lyndon Johnson. She was known by her childhood nickname her whole life, Lady Bird. And her family owned the building next to the pecan factory. And if you've never heard of Taylor's Pecan Factory, go look that up. What's up, Doc? I tell all about Tex Avery and his family being here. And then I tell about the Disney duck in this column. And Miss Burrow, Lydia, I got her to pose with the original Disney autograph because she was in high school when T.H. Johnson received it. She was in high school in 1941. So I took her to the central office. We opened the safe. We brought out the original duck that Walt Disney held in his hands and autographed to the Taylor Ducks. And I handed it to her to hold for a picture to go with my column.
And it's wonderful.
My in-laws met at the pecan factory, so my father-in-law always said he met his wife at a nut house.
I didn't know Taylor had a pecan factory, and it was a fascinating story.
what's interesting is there were similar businesses all over Texas, and I guess Taylor's was the only one that treated its employees humanely. There was like a walkout, strike, big controversy. If you go to the Texas State Historical site, it got very ugly because it was slave labor kind of operation. Most of the other places they were located in Texas, and Taylor was not mentioned in any of those.
George Cummings' family is the one who owned it, and he's the one I got most of the story from. Irene Smith gave me the tip about the story and gave me a picture of the workers at that pecan factory. So it took...
Was it where his refrigerated warehouse was?
That was the building that Lady Bird's father owned.
Okay.
And the pecan factory was the one right next to it.
Okay, where the tractor dealership used to be.
There's a church meeting in the back now.
Yeah, on Second Street.
Yeah, on Second Street.
Yeah.
Yeah. So read a good book about Taylor. There's several books out there you can read. Visit the Taylor Public Library. If you go to the elementary schools, MSC and NPE, look at the murals. There's a lot of Taylor history in those murals. Embrace the quack with a duck out at the statue at the stadium. Look up the historical Facebook pages. You can learn a lot about Taylor there and our history. Watch us on YouTube. Look at some of those videos. Decorate your home and office. There's a lot of duck stuff out there. And if you want to know more about other topics and have a presentation for your group or club or staff or wherever, these are some topics that I have ready to go. So today you heard A Century of Ducks. I also have one on the early days of college, career, and military readiness. I have an entire presentation on our TV and radio pioneer, Taylor's Emmy Award-winning actor, Taylor's chart-topping country music star, and I have one just called Taking Flight that's an overview of so many people from Taylor that went on to great success. And I would be happy to share those with you. And once a duck,